Hello, my friends, and welcome to today's video. I'm Patrick Giguere, and thanks for tuning in. So today's video is going to be all about the eclipse of today, October the 2nd, 2024. So this eclipse, the maximum was at, I think, 2:50 p.m. East Coast time, so Eastern Daylight Time, United States. It's about 8 o'clock now. I've been busy. I had 2 weeks to get my shit together for this video, but there's been a lot going on. This eclipse is kind of kicking my ass too, several days ahead of time. So, to be concise here in the beginning, the subtitle for this video, I'm calling it The Downfall of Messiahs. And that's a big theme here. So we're going to get into the mythology, because astrology is really all about mythology. Mythology is the immune system for your mind. So the big biblical religions, they told people mythology was satanic and evil and all this shit to take away their immune system, their mental immune system, their emotional immune system, so they can be manipulated. So anyway, we're going to get into the mythology behind these constellations and these stars and all this stuff. And another interesting thing too, this eclipse today was conjunct a comet called Suchicha Atlas. The interesting thing about this comet, it has roughly a 26,000 year orbit, which is one zodiac cycle. So very interesting. And if you look at the book title is slipping my mind, but there was a teacher from India who was actually one of Yogananda's teachers. Yogananda wrote Autobiography of a Yogi. So his teacher was Sri Yukteswar, and he talked about in his book about the yugas, the 4 yugas in the Vedic cosmology. Some people say the yugas last for millions of years. He said they all add up to about 26,000 years, which is one zodiac cycle. I think that's correct, because the Mayan calendar, the Toltec calendar that reset in 2012 is a 26,000 year calendar, which incidentally, the Pope during the 1500s changed the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar for the Western world and synced it up with the Mayan Toltec calendar. So yeah, I think that comet signals a reset of the ages, and this is why these dirtbag bankers, like Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, all these people are talking about great resets, because 'tis the season for great resets. And in this great reset season, these people who basically sell themselves to us as messiahs are coming down, and we're starting to see through it as a human family. Another thing with this eclipse, health is going to be a big deal. Virgo is sidereal astrology, which is visible sky astrology, which is not mainstream astrology, but I do visible sky sidereal. The eclipse is it's 15 degrees Virgo in sidereal astrology. So Virgo is the sign of health. We're going to get into that. I think needlecraft side effects are going to ramp up, especially when people start hexing Donald Trump and they start getting into, further into the hate season. And I think in the aftermath of the election, which Mr. Trump will most likely win, the hate's going to ramp up. It's going to mix with these dormant needlecraft poisons, and the side effects are going to kick in even more. And And then, I'm going to talk a little bit about how this eclipse affects these two presidential candidates here in America, Trump and Harris. Politics sucks. Politics appeals to complainers because for generations we've been raised to get ourselves stuck into lives we really didn't want to live, but we've been raised not to know what we want. We've been raised to not know that we can want things for ourselves. We've been raised to think, for the most part, that wanting things for yourself is selfish and self-centered and evil and, all this shit. So people decades later, when youth is long gone, people find themselves in lives that they never really decided to have. But it's too hard to do something about it, so they gravitate to politics. I get plenty of these people in my family, speak from experience. Complainers are toxic people. Even in Book of Proverbs in the Bible says, get the complainers out of your life and your environment. And then I want to, at the end, I'll talk about this comet more. So let's break that. That's the gist here. The big gist from this is that people who have been wanting to look like messiahs and they want us to support them because they say they're going to save us, the wheels are falling off their little programs. We have an expression in English, if you're not a native English speaker, we say when something is falling apart, when something's coming to an end, we say that it's shitting the bed. When somebody's in really poor health, or somebody's in poor health and dying, they can't get out of bed to use the toilet, so we say they're shitting the bed. So it's like a lot of people who want you to think they're messiahs, they're really shitting the bed right now. So, so let's get into the breakdown here. All right. So, like I said, today, October the 2nd, 2:50, so that's 1450 hours to people living in Europe and Asia, places like that where they use 24-hour time. Or if you're in the military, 1450 hours, 2:50 p.m. Here on the east coast of America, that was the maximum for the eclipse. So for solar eclipse, second solar eclipse this year. So let's break it down. What's solar eclipse? Solar eclipse is a conjunction between sun and moon. Sun is the collective soul, the soul we all share. Moon is the collective mind, the mind that we all share. They're represented in the sky. Everything in the sky is inside of each of us. And we project it onto the sky. We project our chakras, which are also analogs for the planets. So basically the planets are our chakras projected into the sky, and the stars are the smaller energy centers, like the acupuncture points, or what is it? I think in India they call these smaller energy centers nadis. So the nadis are the acupuncture points projected into the sky, are the stars. So it's like that whole concept in the Gospel of Thomas, which didn't make it into the Bible. The kingdom of God is inside you. So everything in the outside world is inside you. So anyway, sun's the soul, moon's the mind. They conjunct. They have a planetary war. They compete for influence. So when you get a solar eclipse, you get an alignment of sun, moon, earth. So the moon becomes between sun and the earth, brings the sun into shadow. Now, what's also involved in a solar or a lunar eclipse is one of the nodes of the moon. The nodes of the moon represent the karmic axis in an astrology chart. So these north and south nodes, we call them Rahu and Ketu, or the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. What these are is they're basically portals. They're portals to higher dimensions. So through the north node, Rahu, the dragon's head, things come into the 3D, things from higher dimension, energies from higher dimension, come into this world and manifest. Whereas the south node, the dragon's tail, K2, it's a portal that sends things out of this world. Now, another way to put this, Rahu, the North Node, the dragon's head, it's a Kickstarter. It gets us to basically want to do things in this 3D world. It gets us to obsess about something and to want it and to do it. K2, on the other hand, Dragon's Tail South Node, K2 wants to destroy illusions, whereas Rahu is the master of illusions. You know, it's like we'd never do anything if we didn't have illusions. So we need illusions. So Rahu's a master of illusions. Rahu creates illusions. K2, the South Node, destroys illusions. K2 just wants spirituality and the truth and wants to be liberated from the material world. So this October 2nd, today's solar eclipse, you had Sun and the Moon conjunct with K2. So K2, the South Node, within 3 degrees. So K2 was destroying illusions. So it opened up this portal that basically sucked out the illusions of different parts of our lives individually and collectively. So you had K2 at 12 degrees of Virgo. Sun and Moon met at 15 degrees Virgo. K2's at the lower degree. K2's in charge. So K2 is using the power of the soul and the mind to destroy illusions. And then at 17 degrees, also Virgo, so conjunct with this eclipse also, you had Mercury. Mercury's home sign is Virgo. Mercury's strongest sign is Virgo. Mercury is thinking and communication. Virgo is thinking and communication, but it's very concise, very careful, very well thought thinking and communication. Whereas Gemini is more like reality TV and like a little diarrhea of the mouth, you know, throwing shit at the wall. But Virgo is very calm, collected, like a CPA or a lawyer, you know, somebody like that. So K2 at 12 degrees, Sun and Moon at 15 degrees, K2 at 17, Mercury at 17, all in Virgo. So planet at the lowest degree of the conjunction is always in charge. So K2 is using the wisdom, the infinite power and wisdom of the soul, the infinite power and wisdom of the mind, and the communication and thinking skills of Mercury to destroy illusions and show us something. And I think the big thing was to show us false messiahs for who they are. And really to me, it's like messiahs are a very unhealthy thing because it makes people feel powerless. Messiahs make people feel like they can't do anything for themselves. Makes them believe in their own helplessness. So, and I think there's nothing more egotistical than a messiah, because a messiah is like, I'll save you, you poor helpless thing. So, yeah, I think messiahs are pretty toxic. I'm not a fan. I don't subscribe to them. I do subscribe to teachers, to guides who can help me to learn things, to help me learn to do things for myself. I'm all about that. I'm all about helping people when I can, but I'm no damn messiah. So, that's the gist of this eclipse here. And when you get a luminary like the sun or the moon darkening, so for example, the sun darkens, like today. The sun darkening, this is the light of the soul being darkened for a very brief period. What that does is it helps us to digest information that's been coming in. The soul just sends us this unlimited power, like the sun does. And it's overwhelming, but you get it to darken, and it's almost like if you're playing sports and the referee blows a whistle and there's a timeout. You get a chance to catch your breath and take an inventory and figure out what it is that you're feeling. What are you really thinking? Because when we get very busy, we deal with a lot of other people. We lose ourselves. So it's a chance to gather yourself up, to take an inventory of yourself and understand what's going on inside you and what's going on in the world around you too. It's a pause, it's a break, it's a timeout. was an eclipse. So they all meet up in Virgo. They are conjunct a very important fixed star, the fixed star Vindamatrix or Vindamatrix. So very interesting star. Vindamatrix is the like the mistress of the wine grapes. And so this star, it starts rising with the sun around August 20th, so around the beginning of the harvest, around the time of the vintage. So the vintage is when a grape grower picks the grapes so they can later make wine. And, it signals the beginning of, in the ancient world, it signaled the beginning of the harvest festivals. And so, but an interesting thing too, Vindamatrix is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is the god of seeds, the god of agriculture, the god of the harvest. Saturn always carries a sickle when he's depicted, mythologically. So Saturn basically shows us how we always get what we earned, what we always get what we deserve. So if we were responsible, disciplined, if we were astute, if we were very observant, we get good results, we get a good harvest, we get a good yield. If we were not so disciplined, not so observant, not so responsible, the yield is not very good. And, Saturn doesn't torture us. His whole occupation is to basically to be a guide to our souls and to keep us honest and to teach us lessons so that we can grow and become more disciplined. So Vindamatrix is often a fixed star of, it can be disgrace, stealing, foolishness. One of the terms I found was wanton folly. So if you're not a native English speaker, wanton folly basically means like just foolish behavior from being irresponsible. It's when people are careless, when we don't prepare correctly for a job we need to do, something along those lines. So it's potentially a star of scandal as well. So, and there's a lot of this going on. I made some other notes about Vindamatrix. Just want to double check. I said everything. What's interesting too is they say that Vindamatrix rules the right kidney. So I'm also an acupuncturist. The right kidney in Chinese medicine, it's the fire of the kidney. So it deals with adrenaline. So, yeah, if we have misfortune, he gets stressed out, kind of stresses the right kidney. So it's kind of interesting for me to think about here. But yeah. Now also with Vindamatrix, in Arabic astrology, it was called Al-Muradin. And so it means, he who shall come down, or he who shall have dominion. Now, when you look at the artistic depictions of the constellation Virgo, Vindamatrix is in the right forearm of the maiden, the woman, the young woman who is Virgo. And she's carrying a palm frond in that hand. And so Vindamatrix is also referred to as the sun or the branch who cometh. So to me, this has, I think the stories of Jesus, on Palm Sunday coming into Jerusalem, people are throwing the palm fronds. It's based on the constellation Virgo. Now, an interesting thing is that these sort of priest kings who came from, the types of families in the Middle East that really, Jesus is said to have come from, I don't think an exact Jesus actually lived. I think he was based on, there were 30 messiahs running around Jerusalem during the time when Jesus is said to have lived. I think he's a composite of a bunch of different people, all from aristocratic families. What they tried to do was they wanted they would try to give birth to one of these heirs to one of these families in September, around the Day of Atonement. So in early September. So they would have to conceive in December the previous year. So yeah, so I think Jesus is there's a lot of the basis of his story is in this constellation Virgo. And so it's where you get the palms on Palm Sunday, the sun, the SON arrives, he who shall come down and have dominion, blah, 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 blah. And then the branch who cometh, well, I forget what book it's in, but, they say like, Jesus was a vine from the tree of King David, so it's like a branch of King David's family tree, and that's interesting. The Bible is almost obsessed with racial purity and like purity of bloodlines. It's like, it's like Jesus is almost like the racially pure Superman, because the two leading tribes, the 12 tribes in Israel, the Judites, who are the royals, and then the Levites, who are the priests, they really despised the other 10 tribes because the other 10 tribes were not racially and ethnically pure. And so, when you see in the Bible the story of the Good Samaritan, Samaritan was their way of saying the N-word back in those days, because basically they were saying, oh, can you believe a Samaritan was good? It's like, I met one and he didn't try to kill me and rob me. So, the other 10 tribes, the non-elite 10 tribes, were called Samaritans. So, yeah, pretty interesting. So anyway, yeah, this star has this symbolism and these references, these allusions to these like kings who are promised. And that's an interesting thing about the word Messiah too, is Messiah has nothing to do with a religious leader, nothing to do with a divine son of God, nothing to do with anything supernatural. The Hebrew word Messiah, it basically means a pretender. So not somebody who's like pretending to be something, but really the word pretender, it means a king in waiting. It's somebody who has claimed a throne, but is not yet sitting on it. So Messiah is a purely political term. It's just that Christians generally don't know the definitions of the words they throw around. So Messiah has no spiritual or supernatural meaning. It's just a political leader that's waiting to take over. So this Vindamatrix star to me has it's like layered with all these messianic symbols, these symbols and references to messiahs. And so again, the stars conjunct the sun and the moon, creating this eclipse, and also K2, south node of the moon, the dragon's tail, which is causing the shadow of this eclipse. And again, K2 is that portal that exposes illusions, that takes things away, because K2 deals with liberation from this world. So K2 is showing us, your messiahs are not who you think they are. Trust me here. And as this election wears on, it's like, here in America, it's like, yeah, the Harris-Walz campaign is falling apart. And it's like, I'm not a Trump fan. I find him entertaining. He makes annoying people have temper tantrums and poop their pants. So I think it's funny. He's like pure entertainment. But yeah, it's like, I think he's looking better all the time to people who haven't decided who they're going to vote for yet. So, but he's not a messiah. He's not an answer. And this is becoming more clear too, that none of these political fuckers they're not the answer to our problems. It's like, you're the answer to your problems, I'm the answer to my problems. That's how we get better leaders, because it's like, America has 350 million people, and it's like the best we can do. for leaders like Trump or Harris. Like, give me a break. So, yeah. So the messiahs are falling apart. The messiahs are just getting exposed for just being the television actors that they are. So, let me find my place here. And then the constellation Virgo, where this takes place in. Some say that it's the goddess Astrea. So in mythology, Astrea was a goddess of justice. She was a daughter of the Titans, who were the elder gods, so the parents and grandparents of the gods of Olympus. But during the war between the gods, she sided with the Olympians, with the new gods, and she basically became an Olympian and joined them. And it's also said she was the last Olympian to leave Earth. It's interesting when you look at the Golden Age in the Vedic Hindu cycle of the ages, the Satya Yuga, which is like the Golden Age. In that time, humans are totally fully awake, so we coexist with the gods. And in Greek mythology, they talk about this. And then as things, as the Golden Age falls to the Silver Age, falls to the Bronze Age, we lose sight of the gods. So it's said that she was the last to leave Earth. Or not so much to leave Earth, because the gods are always here with us, but she was the last one who could be perceived by humans, it is said. Better way to put it. So, and then she was it is said mythologically she was placed in the heavens as the constellation Virgo. So pretty interesting. So yeah, since the eclipse is here and it's K2, it's like, it's like the lesson is, it's like, well, she's another aristocrat. You know what I mean? So it's just, it shows us that all of these politicians who we think we know, even though we've never met them, it's helping common sense to dawn on us and say, well, how can I trust a person I've never met? It turns out that they're aristocrats who grew up in luxury. What do they know about my life? Okay. Now also with this eclipse, some other fixed star action. On this very day, at the time of the eclipse, Uranus, the earth shaker, the rebel, Uranus, who basically destroys the status quo, was conjunct Algol. So Algol is very similar to Matrix. It can cause downfalls and scandals and all that stuff. Algol is the head of Medusa. It's in the constellation Perseus. So Perseus is the mythological figure who killed Medusa and took her head so that he could free his mother from a king who had kidnapped her. So Algol is the head of Medusa. And this whole thing in the mythology where the head of Medusa can turn people to stone or can turn monsters to stone. Medusa is basically, the head of Medusa, it's the facts in life that we don't want to face. It's the truth we don't want to face. So Uranus, the rebel and the earth shaker and the revolutionary, is causing world leaders to lose their heads, to lose their reputations, to fall from power gradually, little by little. And Algol just deals with like losing your power. And in English, when we say somebody loses their head, it means they lose their composure. They have a tantrum. They have an emotional outburst. Or it can mean, that they were killed. Jupiter and Uranus, what was it? Excuse me, it was Uranus and Mars on July 14th when President Trump was almost shot. Uranus and Mars were conjunct on Algol, so that's an example. You can lose your head when planets conjunct with Algol. So there's that going on. Also on this day, Mars is conjunct Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. And Sirius is the mouth of the constellation Canis Major, which means, big dog. So Mars is the planet of aggression, assertiveness, action, energy, violence. Deals with your muscles, deals with making things happen. And so Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. Sirius, it's called the scorching one, the brilliant one, because it is bright, has the nature of Venus. It's interesting, the Chinese call Sirius the heavenly wolf. And it deals with attacks from thieves. So it's like you're out in the wilderness and you get attacked by a pack of wolves. So, in Sirius, it can give honor, it can give the goodwill of your fellow man, your fellow human, the favor of the spirits of the air. Can be a creator of prosperity, but Sirius can give people kind of some arrogance, some grandiosity, some pomposity, and which can make people unrealistic. When they think they're undefeatable, when they think that everybody just wants to adore them. So, yeah, it can be really, it can cause people to sabotage themselves. Sirius can make people prone to accusations, whether they're just or unjust, whether they're real or, they're false. But it creates an environment where people can be prone to being accused of things. Well, there's a lot of that going on right now. There's a big election, political fight, all that bullshit. When Mars and Sirius come together, traditionally they say, it creates courage, generates courage, generosity, ambition, authoritativeness. Now, another thing too with Sirius is the star of sacrificed gods, because the nativity story of, the three wise men following Jesus, from the east to his birth in Bethlehem. The three wise men are their traditional name for the three stars in Orion's belt. And starting on the winter solstice, December 21st, and lasting through Christmas Day on the 25th of December, the three stars in Sirius belt, they align in a perfect line. The three stars in Orion's belt, they align with Sirius, which aligns with the sunrise. So, and Sirius is often called the star in the east. So the three wise men, the stars of Orion's belt, follow the star in the east to God's sun. That's a play on words. So sun, you can spell S-U-N-S-O-N. They follow the star in the east, Sirius, to God's sun. It's like, well, the United States government doesn't own the sun. It's God's sun. So, yeah, Sirius is like this star of sacrificed gods. So it was a star of Osiris. And it's involved with, Jesus too. But, these sacrificed gods who are killed and then resurrected. And there's been many, many killed or executed and resurrected gods throughout human history. So Jesus is not unique in that regard. And he's not the only one to have a birthday on December 25th. There have been many. But, yeah, so this to me, one way you can look at this is that it also, Mars conjunct Sirius during this eclipse, it's attacking the power of these political leaders. It's destroying the power of these political leaders to fool us, to manipulate us, and to get us to think that they're messiahs who are here to save us. Now, another interesting part to this whole thing. United States of America, when you look at the birth chart, it's a Sagittarius ascendant. When you use the Kelleher chart, which uses 6:30 p.m., as the birth time on July 4th, 1776. So when you put Sagittarius in the ascendant, Virgo, where this eclipse takes place, is in the 10th house of government. So this is a very ill omen for government and politicians. Not very good at all. It's basically like a downfall of U.S. government, which is going to save us. That and an economic collapse, sure things to save us from tyranny, from, corporate communist takeovers, all that kind of thing. What was the other thing I wanted to say? Oh, yeah. The lunar mansion, the smaller constellation in the sign of Virgo, where this eclipse takes place, the Western name, the Latin name is Sol, so the name for the sun god. Sol is ruled by the moon, which is involved. So, very powerful place for this eclipse to be. Well, and since, solar eclipse, it's a conjunction of the sun and the moon. Sol, the name of the constellation, is the sun god. It's ruled by the moon, so you've got sun and moon involved. So very powerful place for this to happen. I think with Mercury conjunct the sun and the moon during this eclipse, it's like the media is going to be, and you're seeing this already, the media is being more careful, and it's like most of the media will just make life very easy for Democratic candidates. Well, the media is even fact-checking them now, and I think the fact-checking process has become a god, and people just worship it. And even if they have orders to be nice, to the Democrats, they can't stop fact-checking because they're so devoted to fact-checking. And, Virgo and Mercury, and a Mercury in Virgo, all about fact-checking. Makes you a very powerful fact-checker. So, a lot of these people are going to be destroyed by fact-checking, and the media is not even going to be able to help it. They won't be able to stop doing it. So anyway, this lunar mansion, the smaller constellation in Virgo called Sol. Sol is, it deals with, having great skill, having charisma and wit, but it deals with hardship. So there's going to be a lot of hardship for politicians, for the government. People are losing faith. And the symbol for it's basically the sun with radiating rays of light. It looks like a hand. It looks like a hand, being held up, palm of a hand with the fingers, outspread, outstretched. So, this can be a helping hand. This can be a slapping hand. But this sun god Sol, it's a benevolent god. The sun warms the earth. The sun is also the soul, so the sun makes our souls reincarnate here so that we can learn and evolve and grow. So, the sun has a little bit of a disciplinarian personality to it, but that's more Saturn's job. I think that's pretty much it. We also, during this whole thing, we've got a Pluto return going on. Pluto is where it was in 1776. It takes Pluto almost 250 years to go around. So, the United States of America is having its first ever Pluto return. One interesting thing I found, one aspect, is that Saturn, planet of karma, planet of responsibility, planet of discipline, it's retrograde right now, so it's extremely powerful. It's in one of its home signs, Aquarius, which is America's third house of media. Saturn has been spanking the media, has been disciplining the media, has been bringing out a lot of media slip-ups. And Saturn's at 20 degrees Aquarius. So within, by degrees, it's a 5-degree difference. But Saturn, rather than being opposite, Virgo. You know, Aquarius is 6 houses away. Aquarius is 6 houses away from Virgo, rather than the 7 you need for a direct mutual aspect. So when planets are either 6 houses away from each other, 150 degrees away, or 8 houses away from each other, 210 degrees, you get miscommunication. You get planets that have a hard time communicating. So when they have a hard time communicating, they get frustrated. That means we get frustrated. So this basically means through all of this, Saturn's trying to keep the media honest, but since it doesn't have a good aspect to this eclipse, it just means it's not giving us full power right now to basically correcting the media, and exposing basically lies that are being told through it. But there's enough going on where the media is kind of getting its ass kicked. Oh yeah. So these 2 jackasses running for president. Should make a separate video about this. But basically, for Trumpy, Virgo is his second house of resources, second house of speech. So I don't think this is going to take away his ability to speak. So he had this eclipse in his second house of speech. He's got K2 in there, and then he's got Mercury in there. K2 is using Sun, Moon, and Mercury to destroy illusions. So what I think this means is like Trump is going to do more of what he does. Is he's very intuitive, and he speaks off the cuff, and he pisses people off because he says things everyone's thinking. But it's like they're too proper and they're too prestigious to say these things. But he says what everyone's thinking, and that's a very K2 characteristic. K2 just speaks. K2 doesn't sugarcoat things, doesn't play games. K2 just says things. So he's going to be doing more of that. He's going to be dropping more verbal bombs. People are going to be getting pissed off. And he does this on purpose so that people can't think straight. It's so that people who don't like him can't think straight. He's a troll. He's a brilliant troll. He's like the master of scandal. He can use any scandal to his advantage. He really is like a magician. He's a magician of scandal and trolling. And it's funny because when I was a boy, people always said, if someone tries to bully you, just ignore them. Well, none of those adults who told me that can take that advice. They all have temper tantrums, and they poop their pants whenever he says anything. So he's hilarious. He's pure entertainment. Now, Miss Kamala. Not a good place for an eclipse for her. She's a Gemini ascendant, Gemini in the first house. Virgo's her fourth house. Fourth house is your home, and more pertinently, Virgo is her fourth house of security. So she is going to be feeling more secure than ever. She's always been insecure. It's why she's always giggling and cackling. Why she has to tell people 200 times a day she was raised middle class. She always has this nervous laugh. She's extremely insecure, and it's like, well, this is like the mother of all eclipses of insecurity for her. The lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago, that was in her 10th house of career, which hurts her career. And then in April, the solar eclipse was in her 10th house of career, which is Pisces. So that kind of gave people some excitement about her, because Rahu is the master of illusions. In that April solar eclipse in Pisces was a Rahu eclipse. But now that she's got this K2, Dragon's Tail South Node eclipse going on in her fourth house of security in Virgo, She's going to feel very insecure. She's going to look more awkward. Her handlers, her corporate sponsors don't let her go on TV very often because she embarrasses herself. It's like she's like Joe Biden like that. She's a very skilled actress, but she doesn't do well if she doesn't have a script. And on top of that, she's just very insecure, and she's either under preparing or over preparing. I don't know which, but she's a disaster. So, very bad eclipse for her. I could probably do separate videos on that. And again, this comet, this Sushin Cha Atlas comet, comes around once every 26,000 years, once every zodiac cycle. I think this signals, because the Mayan calendar, again, is the same length. I think this signals the greatest reset, which is the reset of the zodiac cycle. So we're coming out of the age of Pisces. The age of Pisces sucks. It's the 2,000 years where we all work off our karma. We get screwed, it's like Christianity and Buddhism were born in the age of Pisces. And it's these religions where you just do what you're told and you have no desire, which is very unhealthy to not have desire. Your soul came here to fulfill its desires. So to say something like, I have no desire, I only walk Buddha's middle path, or my life is for the Lord, it's like, that makes you mentally ill when you have no desires in your own life. So we need desire. So we're coming out of this age of Pisces, and life on Earth is going to start getting a lot better. So yeah, big deal here, having this comet conjunct that only comes around every 26,000 years, conjunct the solar eclipse. Really cool. And a solar eclipse as powerful as this one. All right, last thing I'm going to leave you with. I haven't made one this long in a little while. Last thing I'm going to leave you with is the health. So, if you're not very familiar with hexes and curses, I talk about this on my channel a lot, but if you're new to it, I'll give you a brief rundown. A hex is a type of a curse. It's very personal. It's when somebody wishes disease, death, poverty, homelessness, or imprisonment, or any other unfortunate thing onto another human being. I've never hexed anyone. I doubt I ever will. There are times when it's appropriate to do it, but they're very few and far between. The only time that you can curse somebody and not suffer consequences is when somebody has singled you out. Somebody has mentioned your name and told other people to go steal your home, take your business away, take your family away, kill your family, burn your house. When somebody does something like that to you and it's very personal, then you have a right under natural law, under spiritual law, to hex that person. And you can basically send them malicious energy that will destroy them. But the problem with these things is that it can affect people's families. I think too much cursing and hexing caused like the Irish famine in the 1840s and 50s. I think it's why Haiti is such a dump these days. Because it's like when you look at satellite photos, the Dominican Republic and Haiti share a single island, called Hispaniola. On the left side, on the west side, is the Dominican Republic. It's like this lush tropical paradise. It's green. has all these forests. The right side of the island, Haiti, it looks like the surface of the moon. It's like pure dust. And there's a lot of voodoo there. I know people who've lived in Haiti, and there's a lot of voodoo, there's a lot of cursing. So this happens a lot in different places in the world. So the point is, with hexes, with curses, you can only use it rightfully if somebody has personally done something very horrible to you. But since 2015, a very big hex, a very big ongoing curse has been going on. And mass media has encouraged people to hate Donald Trump, to wish disease, death, imprisonment, death of family members, poverty on him. And they've been encouraging millions of people who he's never done anything to hate him and curse him. So when you curse, when you put hexes on people who've never done anything personal to you, you can't send them that destructive, malicious energy, malevolent energy. Instead of that energy transferring to that person, it stays inside of you, the person who is hating and cursing that person. Hating and cursing that person. And when it stays inside of you, it starts to eat away at you, and it destroys your mental health, your physical health, all that kind of stuff. And you attract situations that facilitate your destruction. So it's funny, this giant media hex, this media curse on Donald Trump started in 2015. End of 2020, early 2021, we got the needlecraft. And the media was telling everybody, go get your needlecraft, and then go get your second and your third and your fourth, and then go get one every 6 months when they tell you to get a new one. And it's become very apparent how dangerous this needlecraft is and how many side effects. And even in the manufacturers of the needlecraft, in their own paperwork that comes with the needlecraft, it talks about all the possible side effects. So the advent of the needlecraft, that was the curse against Trump backfiring. So I think as people pour on more hate, there's going to be more side effects. There's going to be more, departed suddenlies. So, and this is just the beginning. Because in Chinese medicine, it's been known for thousands of years. When you change your body at a genetic level, it takes 7 years to fully manifest. So really, 2028 is going to be the tsunami year where you start seeing tsunamis of like turbo cancers and circulatory illness. But this is going to be a catalyst when people really start just vehemently hating Donald Trump even more. And if he wins this election, which I think is going to be the case, I think he's going to win. I think his opponents are going to try to create all kinds of legal drama to try to keep him from taking office. I think he's going to take office, and then it's going to be a very dangerous time in his life, from January through April 2025. I hope he doesn't get hurt. I hope he lives. It's like, yeah, he's a big narcissistic child, but, he's human too, and he's done people less harm than his opponents in the course of his life. He's never started a war. He's never been on congressional intelligence committees and armed services committees, which authorized, illegal black operations, military and intelligence, black operations, overseas. So, establishment people like Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, John McCain, George Bush, Dick Cheney, Nancy Pelosi, who all voted for the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya, they have high body counts and a lot of blood on their hands. That's one thing you can say about Mr. Trump. He doesn't have body count like that, in the tens to hundreds of thousands. So yeah, I hope nothing happens to him, but it's going to be a dangerous time in his life. So the point is, in the aftermath of that election, people are going to be extremely hateful, extremely angry, and it's going to cause them to have cancers, strokes, heart attacks, dementia, neurological diseases. So it's going to be a mess. All right, that's long enough. Trying to have this out before midnight. Thanks to everyone who will watch this once it's out. Have a nice one.